Welcome to U.S. Defense Line Channel. Explosion sounds echoed from Russian military equipment in the regions. Many Russian ammunition depots and critical points destroyed. Strategic advance and increasingly violent operations of the Ukrainian troops on the fronts continue. Control of a critical region is about to pass to Ukraine. Russia will not be able to provide logistics flow to the key region. As a result of the successful moves of the Ukrainian defense units, an Orlan-10 unmanned aerial vehicle was shot down in one day. Also, a Russian command post and ammunition storage point were hit. Explosion sounds came one after another from critical points in the regions. Russian soldiers are starting to get harder and harder. Moreover, Ukraine began to send more troops and equipment to critical fronts. This situation causes the Russian troops to be much weaker on the fronts, while the offensive and defensive power of the Ukrainian forces is increasing. Violence of the operations on the Eastern Front, which is of critical importance for the countries, continues to increase gradually. On the Luhansk front, the eastern region, the Ukrainian armed forces targeted an ammunition depot belonging to Russian troops. As a result of these precise moves of the Ukrainian troops, who mostly targeted critical areas in their attacks, the sounds of explosions echoed from the ammunition storage points and critical logistics points of the Russian soldiers, one after the other. This situation causes the losses of Russia during the war to reach much more serious dimensions. At the same time, it was reported that shelling was carried out with modern rocket artillery in many regions, such as Stelmakivka, Hrikivka, and Makiyivka on this front. Russian soldiers now have more difficulty in making moves and suffer losses. Ukrainian armed forces, on the other hand, continues to prevent the attacks of Russian troops on critical areas. Ukrainian troops this time repelled the attacks of Russian troops against 7 regions. In addition, Ukrainian forces hitting a command center and ammunition storage point of Russian troops on the Eastern Front made these areas unusable. General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, with its critical statements on these issues, announced the critical areas where attacks were prevented. It was stated that these important regions are the Bilohorivka region on the Luhansk front and 3 other regions, such as Bakhmut, Spirn, and Opytn on the Donetsk front. It is of critical importance for both countries to achieve dominance in these areas, which are located on the Eastern Front and are among the most important regions. For these reasons, the violence of the operations on these important fronts continues to increase. At the same time, it is known that Ukrainian troops have achieved significant successes on the Southern Front in recent days. It is stated that after the successes on this Southern Front, additional Ukrainian soldiers began to be sent to the Eastern Front. This situation causes the Russian troops to struggle even more. Ukrainian armed forces launched operations against the Kremenna region on the Luhansk front and moved towards the region. Ukraine, which started attacks on Russian troops in the Kremenna region, is starting to make progress in this important region. As it is known, this region has a great importance in terms of Russian logistics points. This will prevent Russian troops from providing a supply flow to the critical Luhansk front if the Ukrainian troops are able to gain control over this line. In the event of this situation, the soldiers who cannot reach sufficient equipment and ammunition at the front will have to face great defeats and losses. After escalating fighting in this critical area, Ukrainian troops hit Russian positions in this Kremenna area. Russian forces, which suffered serious losses, had to withdraw from most of the region. While the Ukrainian troops are attacking this Kremenna region, they are also sending additional soldiers to the Svatovo region on the line. It is reported that Ukrainian troops first tried to break into the P07 highway, which leads to the Svatovo region. Russian troops made an effort in this important area, but could no longer resist the attacks of the Ukrainian troops. Thereupon, the 92nd Brigade of the Ukrainian Armed Forces entered the highway through the Kuzmovka region. With the help of additional troops that followed, clashes with Russian troops in the region continued for long hours. Increase of Ukrainian troops in the region further increased the tension in Moscow. Operations continue unabated on the Zaporizhzhia front, which is of critical importance for countries. It was reported that Russian troops opened fire with tank guns and various artillery weapons against many regions such as Zaliznik and Poltavka on the front. Although Russian troops have been attacking this front for a long time, these attacks are constantly in vain. In addition, it was reported that Russian forces tried to defend their lines in some areas on the front. Moreover, on this front, as it is known, Europe's largest nuclear power plant is located. This situation causes every move made in the region to become more critical. At the same time, every move made by the Russian troops in the region causes the tension between the countries to increase even more. Because it is known by all countries that if the explosions near the facility spill over to the facility, the result will be very bad. That's why experts go to the region from time to check. Western countries, on the other hand, are increasing their sanctions against Russia's moves in the region. While the successful operations of the Ukrainian armed forces on the fronts continue without slowing down, some countries are starting to take importance on behalf of their countries because they lost their trust in Russia. As it is known, Russia started a war against Ukraine, and during this war, reactions and sanctions were imposed against Russia from many countries. This time, Finland has started to fence towards the border areas of its country. In case of a possible attack from Russia, Finland will build a fence on its border with Russia at a very high cost. In these days when the violence of the war has increased considerably, it is known that every move affects many countries. After the missiles that fell on the Polish border in the past days, many countries took action and started to increase their security measures even more. If the scope of the war is expanded, the war will reach a completely different dimension. Meanwhile, Ukrainian troops continue to inflict serious losses on Moscow's military resources and equipment. Even the daily losses inflicted by Russia are now quite high. On top of all this, it is thought that Russia may declare a new wave of mobilization due to a shortage of troops, as it has to face successive defeats. However, the previous mobilization, as it is known, caused a worse result for Russia. Because these Russian soldiers, who were hastily sent and trained and unequipped, are suffering serious losses in conflicts and on the fronts where operations are increasing. According to the statements, Russia has lost more than 84,000 soldiers since the beginning of the war. It was also reported that it lost close to 2,890 tanks, more than 5,815 armored combat vehicles, and close to 1,870 artillery systems. These losses cause Russia's offensive and operational power to decline gradually. On the one hand, Russian troops continue their attack attempts by starting to use the last military equipment and ammunition they have. This time, it was reported that 59 attacks were carried out with multiple launch rocket systems. In addition, 4 missiles and 1 airstrike were carried out. It is also known that such attacks, on the other hand, cause more and more reactions and sanctions on behalf of Russia due to the fact that they are carried out against infrastructures. However, these attacks are also very bad for Russia, because as a result of each attack, their ammunition decreases and their economic problems increase due to sanctions. For these reasons, their attacks on infrastructures do not seem logical at all. All kinds of steps and decisions taken by countries will become much more critical from now on. In time, all kinds of moves should be taken in line with much more strategic goals. Otherwise, the erring party will become worse and worse, and the other party will gain an advantage. We'll see what happens in the next few days. We have reached the end of another video. You can support us by liking the video. You can easily follow new videos by subscribing. I wish you all a war-free day. See you.